to represent this state. It's a privilege to be here and to represent you. Lord, I pray that you would bless this day, please. I pray that you would bless this week, please. I pray that you'd give us wisdom. I pray you'd give us boldness. Father, I pray you'd help us to do what's right. And undoubtedly, there'll be difference of opinion. And undoubtedly, there'll be difference in vote counts. But Father, I pray that you'd help us to realize that we do have a privilege to live in this great country. And we do have the opportunity to look to you for counsel and for guidance. I pray you'd help us to do just that, to look to you for counsel and guidance. Lord, we ask all these things in the precious and powerful name of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. Amen.
If members of council please remain standing, we'll be led in the Pledge of Allegiance this morning by the gentleman of the 10th, Doug Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, join me, please, as we pledge allegiance to the flag of the greatest nation of the world. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Members and guests may be seated. Reading of the Journal.
Journal of the House of Delegates, Charleston, Friday, February 19th, 2021.
Lady from the 38th, Doug Graves.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent that further reading of the journal be dispensed with and that it be approved as having been read.
Lady from the 38th, ask unanimous consent that further reading of the journal be dispensed with and it be approved as having been read. Are there objections? There are no objections. Introduction of guests. Lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our doctor of the day is Dr. Wes Lafferty from South Charleston. If everyone could make him feel welcome.
Reports of standing committees.
Your Committee on Education has had under consideration House Bill 2308, creating the Business Promise Plus Scholarship. Reports the same back with amendment, with the recommendation that it do pass as amended, that it be referred to the Committee on Finance.
The report will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Your Committee on Judiciary has had under consideration House Bill 2372, allowing pre-candidacy papers to be filed the day after the general election. Reports back a committee substitute, therefore, with recommendation that the committee substitute do pass.
The report will be received. Are there further reports of standing committees? If not, reports of select committees. Message from the Executive. Message from the Senate.
Clerk of the Senate announces the passage by the Senate of Committee Substitute for Senate Bill 277, creating COVID-19 Jobs Protection Act.
Message will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Judiciary. Are there further Senate messages? If not, resolutions.
House Resolution 9, declaring National FFA Week in West Virginia.
Lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent that the committee reference be dispensed with and that the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration and put upon its adoption.
The lady from the 49th asks unanimous consent that the committee reference for House Resolution 9 be dispensed with and that the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration to put upon its adoption. Are there objections? There are no objections. The clerk will read the resolution.
House Resolution 9, declaring National FFA Week in West Virginia.
Lady of the 49th.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to explain the resolution in lieu of having it read.
Are there objections? There are no objections.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 1 week a year, the National FFA declares a week that is considered Future Farmers of America Week. That is this week, and that is what is in the resolution before us.
The question before the House is the adoption of the resolution. Are there members who wish to speak to adoption of the resolution? If not, those in favor of adoption, roll call has been demanded. Is the demand sustained? Demand is sustained. The question is, shall the resolution be adopted? Those in favor of adoption will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there were 96 ayes, 0 nays, and 4 members absent not voting. Majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the resolution adopted. Are there further resolutions?
Oh, yeah. House Concurrent Resolution 6 to repeal Section 230 of the U.S. Code to protect the freedom of speech online.
Resolution will be referred to the Committee on Judiciary, then the Committee on Rules. Petitions, motions, bills introduced.
House Bill 2026 relating to the modernization of the collection of income taxes by adopting uniform provisions relating to the mobile workforce.
Lady from the 49th.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that the further reading of bills introduced be dispensed with and that each bill be considered as formally introduced and referred to the appropriate committees as indicated on the delegate console system.
The lady from the 49th asks unanimous consent that further reading of resolutions or of the bills introduced be dispensed with and that each bill be considered as having been formally introduced and referred to the appropriate committees as shown on the delegate console system. Are there objections? There are no objections. Unfinished business. Bills on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2008, amending requirements for licensure relating to elevator mechanics, crane operators, HVAC, electricians, and plumbers.
Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? The chair hears no objection, recognizes the gentleman from the 15th, Douglas Foster, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The purpose of House Bill 2008 is to alter the hours required for licenses in areas such as HVAC, electricians, plumbers, and to encourage skilled people in these professions to come live and work in West Virginia. The bill brings some requirements in line with surrounding states to make states more competitive within the available talent pool. The bill also provides a mechanism for veterans to be licensed HVAC technicians without examination, further increases the availability of the talent pool for skilled workers in this state. I would urge passage.
Question before the House is, shall the bill pass? The gentleman, the second, Douglas DISERIO, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Speak to the bill, please.
Gentleman is recognized.
Well, thank you. Thank you again. I'm going to stand up and talk about this again. Don't get me wrong, because I don't like standing up here talking about these bills every day, but I don't like this bill. I don't like it at all. I didn't like 2006, I didn't like 2007, I don't like 2008. And I'm going to tell you here, on a lot of other people must not have liked it either, because a couple of days back, the medical physicians, podiatrists, physician's assistants, they all got out of the 2007. Now we're at 2008, and where do we stand? It's about time we're going to show our colors. It really is. And I want to talk to all of you. The gentleman from the 63rd made a statement the other day how proud he was of our coal miners. When he walked to his apartment the other day in the cold, his lights were on, his heat was on, and I'll tell you, I agree with him 100%. I appreciate those coal miners. I appreciate the people that work in those powerhouses and keep our electricity going. I appreciate people that own those powerhouses, such as American Electric Power and First Energy. And where I'm going with this is across this nation, companies like First Energy and American Electric Power have entered into a program called the NMAPC. That's the National Maintenance Agreement Policy Committee. Now, what this policy committee does is create yellow card sites all across this nation. Those large companies work with the building trades, keep their work on their sites 100% union. And you know why? It's not because they like paying our high wages. It's not because they like paying our benefits. They like what we bring to the table. It's educated craftsmen that can do jobs. You know, I don't like anyone to think that their occupation is less than anybody else's. And I certainly don't think so that is about mine. I think that, you know, for those of you that don't know me, I'm a 40-year member of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. I'm a former president of the union. And there's a whole bunch of you over there saying right now, I don't give a crap about his union or his union affiliation. And I get it. Let me tell you, I get it. I told you the other day, you've overstepped your boundaries because you've got people such as the Kanawha Valley Builders Association and the West Virginia Homeowners Association that are open shop organizations that have told you this bill is no good. So I'm going to go back to what I was talking about earlier. We're going to show our colors a little bit. Because you all got put in a place here the other day, got put in a little predicament. Because my friend from the 10th, who is a gentleman, and I appreciate it, stood and asked you to amend into this bill that crane operators be taken out. I believe my friend stated that he's a third-generation owner of a business, 80 years strong. He knows that business. You know something? I know my business. And there's sprinkler fitters out there that know their business. And they take care of the safety of the people in this state. Now, what I'm going to ask you today is, what's the difference between me and that gentleman from the 10th, my friend that I greatly respect? Is it because he's an R and I'm a D? You had to make a decision the other day when you had in leadership over there asking you to take that amendment down. And you had someone in leadership over there, please vote for this amendment. You voted with the person that knows the industry and told you this is bad for the industry. So, I want to know who you were sent down here to represent. Leadership or the taxpayers of this state of West Virginia? You're letting everybody out of these bills. Somebody got the elevator operators out of it. I don't know who. I don't got that clout, apparently. I don't see a difference between me and my friend from the 10th. He asked you to take his part out because it was bad for the bill. I'm asking you to take the whole bill out because it's bad for the bill. It's bad for West Virginians that pay taxes and for their safety. Do it for one, do it for all, but you're not down here to represent leadership. You're down here to represent your constituents. And I ask you to vote the bill down. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman of 36, Douglas Barrick.
All right, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And like the delegate from the 2nd District, I'm a two-time former union member, and I certainly support our labor people in this state here, and I'm against this bill very much. When I filled my forms out a little over a year ago to declare my candidacy, I made a pledge. And I said the first question that I'm going to ask on any bill that's presented in front of me is, how does this affect the working families of West Virginia? And I made that pledge to my constituents, to my supporters, and most importantly to myself. And I'm going to follow up on that. And I look at this, and I understand, I guess, where this bill comes from. We want some people maybe to have an easier time to come in here to work, but not at the expense of the people who are already here, who are possibly more qualified than these people. We don't want to give give their jobs away in order for someone else to move in here. And I think that's very important. And if I may, real quickly, I'd like to read an email I got from one of my constituents. And it's a short one. It's one of the few I've gotten. It's less than 5 pages. And it's from a gentleman named Bert in Bell. And Bert says, I'm starting my 30th year as a licensed electrician in West Virginia. Shortly after completing my service in the Army, so he's a veteran, give him some props for that, I was able to secure my apprentice license, journeyman, and ultimately a master electrician's license. Now this is the next part is what grabbed me, and I hope it grabs you. If not, check your soul. This career has provided my family health care and a middle-class living. Wow, he's reaching for the moon, isn't he? Health care and a middle-class lifestyle, that's all he's asked for. That's what he's achieved. And he's saying, please don't take it away from me. I've worked very hard for this 30 years. He's in his 50s, more than likely. He's raised a family. If you're in your 50s or your 60s and you're looking for work, it's not fun, believe me. And, you're raising a family and, you're paying a mortgage. You got kids. You're trying to put some money away for college maybe, trying to save a little bit for retirement if you're lucky. And that's all he's asking. And we're saying, well, I don't know, maybe we can, give that away to someone else. Bert in Bell is the person I'm working for. He's in this state. Every vote that every one of us has gotten in this last election and in every election comes from people in West Virginia. I'm working for Bert from Bell. I'm not working for Kenny from Kentucky or Oscar from Ohio. I'm working for Bert from Bell, and I hope you are too. And when I press the red button on this vote, I hope all of you do too. And if you press green, if I see green pop up on your name up there, I feel bad for you, because I want you to go home and look in the mirror and say, did I really serve the people of West Virginia, the working families of West Virginia? And so please consider that when you make this vote. It's very important to me, and I think it's very important to our state. Thank you very much.
Are there other members who wish to speak to passage of this bill? If not, the gentleman of the 15th, Douglas Foster, close debate on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And this is something that we've talked about for a little while, and many of these licenses, and they've become kind of more of a protectionist mentality. Hey, protect me. I've got a license. I'm paying basically being paid more to do work because it's harder to get into this field. And I think that's a mistake, because what we need to do is encourage, as the gentleman from 38th mentioned, I believe it's 38th, or we need to encourage people to get into this state, people in this state to be able to have a job. So not people that are, when he's saying that this gentleman who was a veteran that became an electrician, well, also electricians veterans who are electricians that worked in that field are already exempt from the hours requirements that's required in this bill. And then the veteran electrician could, without an hours requirement, pass the test and go into the trade. And as the gentleman said, earn middle-class income for his family to be comfortable. But what this bill does is provide that opportunity to more people in West Virginia. Then I also want to remind people that there's a difference, just kind of what we're voting on here. So a master plumber right now needs 12,000 hours or 6 years experience. That is, a commercial airline pilot is 3,000 hours. So you're voting to reduce the hours requirements for a plumber, since right now it takes 4 times as many hours to become a licensed master plumber as it does to fly a commercial airliner. And we've made many different changes in this bill. And I also want to say this is a jobs bill to create jobs here in West Virginia. I got a gentleman that called me when he saw this bill was on the agenda. He says, listen, I'm going to put 5 plumbers to work right now when this bill passes. I have 5 guys that are skilled and competent to do plumbing work. The only thing is they don't have 12,000 hours of experience or 6 years experience. They've been in the trade for 1 or 2 years and could run a vehicle. So now he said that he could hire 5 people right now, put them in a vehicle, fixing people's plumbing. So this is a jobs bill, and I would definitely urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there were 61 ayes, 37 nays, and 2 members absent not voting. Majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title. Committee substitute for House Bill 2008, amending requirements for licensure relating to elevator mechanics, crane operators, HVAC, electricians, and plumbers. Are there amendments to the title? Delegate Steele moves to amend the title. Question before the House is the adoption of the title amendment. Those in favor of the title amendment will say aye. Those opposed will say no. The ayes have. The chair declares the title amendment adopted. The title of the bill will be as amended by the House. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Request concurrence therein. Next bill on third reading. House Bill 2253, relating to forgery and other crimes concerning lottery tickets. Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? The chair hears no objection. The gentleman of 35th, Doug Capito, to explain the bill.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Inquiry of the chair. I believe we moved this bill to third with a right to amend. I believe there's amendment at the desk.
Are there amendments?
Delegate Kessinger moves to amend the bill. This is HFA Kessinger 2-22, number 1.
Does the lady wish to explain the amendment in lieu of having it read?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Are there objections? There are no objections.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This amendment is fairly simple. In the bill, it expresses the penalty that would be given to someone who fraudulently, who commits fraud with a lottery ticket. My amendment actually reduces the penalty from up to 5 years to no more than 1 year, and reduces it from a felony to a misdemeanor, for the simple fact that if someone was to commit fraud with a $2 scratch off, they could end up in prison for up to 5 years. So this amendment is meant to make the penalty a little more conducive with the severity of the crime.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendment as just explained by the lady from the 32nd. Are there members who wish to speak to the amendment? The gentleman from the 35th, Dr. Capito.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I think the lady's amendment is a good amendment. I support the amendment. I think the thrust of this legislation was to ensure that we weren't putting in draconian penalties for minor offenses, so I'll support the lady's amendment.
Are there other members who wish to speak to the amendment? If not, then those in favor of the amendment will say aye. Those opposed will say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. The chair declares the amendment adopted. Bill will be advanced to third reading. Bill will be engrossed in advanced third reading. Clerk will read the bill a third time.
House Bill 2253, relating to forgery and other crimes concerning lottery tickets.
Gentleman from the 35th to explain the bill.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, briefly, thank you. The bill before you, we've had the past 2 legislative sessions. It deals with what I would consider kind of an oversight in our penalties in the code. And it was a situation prior to the posture of this bill where one could be sentenced for infinite amount of time in a prison for forging a lottery ticket, as the lady said earlier. With the amendment, it obviously makes it a misdemeanor prison with prison time up to 1 year, which I think is proportionate. I encourage passage of the bill.
The gentleman to 36, Doggett Rowe.
Would the gentleman respond to a question? If someone were to make a scratch, do a forgery or steal a ticket worth $1 million, would this be the only penalty that they would be subject to, or would there be other penalties that they might be subject to?
This is only the making, uttering, or forging, so it wouldn't deal with theft. I believe theft would probably apply in that situation.
Okay, so theft would be, this is only in actually working on the ticket?
Correct.
Okay. And if it was a very large ticket and made a lot of money to the person, it remains a misdemeanor, correct?
Correct.
Thank you, sir.
The gentleman 26, Doggett Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the gentleman continue to yield? Just for my own information, yes. Do we have a lot of this forgery crime on lottery in West Virginia?
We actually, interesting that the gentleman would ask, we had a fiscal note on this, and we were informed, I believe, by the Bureau of Prisons that there is no one currently serving under this sentence, but that does not mean that it couldn't happen.
Oh, I agree. I just as I say, point of reference for my own information there. I've never heard of anybody forging a lottery ticket in West Virginia, so I just you know, curious. Thank you, sir.
Are there other members who wish to be recognized on the bill? If not, the question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there were 91 ayes, 8 nays, and 1 member absent not voting. Majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
House Bill 2253, relating to forgery and other crimes concerning lottery tickets.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate and request concurrence therein. Are there further bills on third reading? If not, bills on second reading.
Committee substitute for House Joint Resolution 1, Supervision of Free Schools Modification Amendment.
Are there amendments? If not, the resolution be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2260, relating to procurement of child placing services.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
House Bill 2500, create an act for statewide uniformity for auxiliary container regulations.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced. Are there further bills on second reading? If not, bills on first reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2094, relating to the juvenile restorative justice programs.
The bill will be advanced.
House Bill 2184, increasing the penalties for exposure of governmental representatives to fentanyl or other harmful drug.
The bill will be advanced. Are there further bills on first reading? If not, leaves of absence. Lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For our colleague, Delegate Higginbotham.
Are there objections to a leave being granted? There are no objections. Leave of absence shall be granted. Introduction of guests, miscellaneous business. If none, then Lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move, subject to announcements, that the House adjourn until 11 a.m. Tuesday, February 23rd.
The question before the House is the lady's motion that, subject to announcements, the House stand adjourned until 11 a.m. tomorrow. Are there announcements? The gentleman from the 16th, Doug Linville.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent to address the House.
Are there objections? There are no objections.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and everyone. From the bottom of my heart, I want to say thank you for the outpouring of prayer and support and messages as my father dealt with a very life-threatening condition over the last week. We feel it. We appreciate it. I'd like to, straight here from the floor of this House, thank so many of the nurses who took our calls at well after midnight and as we were checking on all of his various vital signs. And I'd like to report to the House that God is a very, very good God. And my father is, I believe, awake right now with a ventilator out of him, extubated, and likely watching us. And he told me that he wanted me up here in Charleston, so here I am. And everyone, thank you so much for being so good to us over the last week. Thank you.
Gentleman the 10th, I got Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Finance will have a budget hearing this afternoon in the House chambers at 4 p.m. with the Department of Revenue and at 5 p.m. with the Lottery Commission. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman the 32nd, Doug Fast.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Judiciary will meet today, 4 p.m., Government Organization Room. The agenda has been posted.
The gentleman the 27th, Doug Ellington.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Education will meet at 2 o'clock today in the House chamber. The agenda is posted. In addition, prior to that, at 12:30, Democrats on the committee will meet with the chairman in his office to caucus, and at 1 o'clock, Republicans on the committee will meet with the chairman in his office to caucus.
The gentleman the 15th, Doug Foster.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Government Organization will meet today at 1 p.m. in the Government Organization Committee Room. The agenda for that meeting is posted, and we will also meet at 1 p.m. tomorrow, and that agenda will be posted.
The gentleman the 17th, Doug Rohrbach.
Human Resources will meet tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. in the Government Organization Room. Thank you.
The gentleman the 10th, Doug Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Energy and Manufacturing will meet tomorrow, Tuesday, February 23rd at 9 a.m. in the House chambers. The agenda will be posted. Further, Republican members of the committee will meet at 8:30 tomorrow morning in the chairman's office. Thank you.
The gentleman the 28th, Doug Pack.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The West Virginia Bankers Association will be providing a boxed breakfast in the morning, Tuesday, February 23rd, in the Great Hall in front of the House at 8 a.m. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Lady from the 38th, Doug Graves.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Republicans will caucus tomorrow here in the chamber at 1 p.m. That's tomorrow in the chamber, 1 p.m.
The gentleman the 42nd, Doug Longenecker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If it's not too late, I would like to have the record reflect that I am a yes vote on House Bill 2008. Unfortunately, I had to step out and I got a personal family issue I had to address, and I missed the vote.
Gentleman may file that with the clerk.
Thank you.
Are there further announcements? If not, the question before the House is the motion by the lady from the 49th that the House stand adjourned until 11 a.m. tomorrow. Those in favor will say aye. Any opposed will say no. The ayes have it. That motion is adopted. The House is adjourned until 11 a.m. tomorrow.
The Senate will come to order. All those not having privileges of the floor will please vacate the chamber. Those in the gallery and those on the floor will please rise as we're led in prayer by Jake Nichols, Senate parliamentarian. Please remain standing after the prayer as the senator from Boone will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Nichols.
Let's pray. Our Father, you are holy, righteous, and good. How awesome are your works. By faith, we know that the universe was created by your word and that you alone have power to destroy both soul and body in hell. Thank you for graciously giving us another day of life and for causing it to rain on all of us, both the just and the unjust. Today, we confess that our greatest need is to know you, or rather to be known by you. Therefore, Father, I ask you to make yourself known to all who are with us today, whether senator, staff member, or constituent. Apart from you, there is no salvation, but with you there is forgiveness. Just as David spoke by the Holy Spirit, blessed are those whose lawless deeds are forgiven and whose sins are covered. Blessed is the man against whom you will not count as sin. Creator God Almighty, teach us to regard you as holy. Be our only fear and be our only dread. We who are yours ask these things for the sake of the kingdom and in the name of the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you. Senator from Boone.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would the members of the body join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Reading of the journal.
West Virginia Legislature Senate Journal, February 19th, 2021. The Senate met at 11:01 a.m. Senator Blair, Mr. President, in the chair.
The senator from Preston requests unanimous consent that further reading of the journal be dispensed with and the journal be approved. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Further reading of the journal is dispensed with and the journal is approved. Introduction of guest. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the Senate, it's your pleasure and mine to introduce our doc of the day. In the rear of the chamber, we have with us today Dr. Wes Lafferty. He's practicing family medicine down in Madison, West Virginia. If the Senate would give him a warm welcome.
Further introductions. Further introductions. Communications from the House.
The Clerk of the House announced the passage by that body of committee substitute for House Bill 2003 relating to the authority and obligations of the governor and legislature when in declared states of preparedness and emergency.
The message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Government Organization, then on to the Committee of Judiciary.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2009 relating to limitations on the use of wages and agency shop fees by employers and labor organizations for political activities.
The message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2014 relating to role of the legislature in appropriating federal funds.
The message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2325, removing the requirement of continuing education for barbers and cosmetologists.
The message will be received and will be referred to the Committee on Government Organization.
House Bill 2366, requiring agencies who have approved a proposed rule that affects fees or other special revenues to provide to the committee a fiscal note.
The message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Government Organization. Communications from the Executive.
There are none.
Reports from standing committees.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration Senate Bill 29, authorizing fee payment and expense reimbursement for attorneys participating on court teams established by the Supreme Court of Appeals, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass, but under the original double committee reference, first be referred to the Committee on Finance. Respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
The report will be received, and under the original double committee reference, the bill will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration Senate Bill 53, providing next of kin criminally responsible for relatives' death may not be involved in burial agreements, and reports back a committee substitute for same, with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass. Respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
The report will be received. Reports from select committees.
There are none.
Introduction of bills. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that Senate Bill 373 through Senate Bill 395 be considered introduced, read by their titles, and referred to the appropriate committees as shown on the chamber automation system.
The Senior Senator from the 17th requests unanimous consent that Senate Bill 373 through Senate Bill 395 be considered introduced, read by their titles, and referred to the appropriate committees as shown on the chamber automation system. Is there objection? The chair hears none. So ordered. Resolutions.
There are none.
Motions. Petitions.
There are none.
Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent to return to the fourth order of business.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Reports from standing committees.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration Senate Bill 396, originating in committee, relating to providing limitations on nuisance actions against fire department or emergency medical services fixed sirens, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass. Respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
The report will be received. Unfinished business.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 7, naming the Ira Noon Copley and Marie Copley Memorial Bridge.
The resolution will be referred to the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure.
Senate Resolution 6, adopting special rule of order related to proxy voting due to COVID-19 pandemic.
The question is on adoption of the resolution. Is there discussion? Is there further? No discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is on adoption of the resolution. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the resolution adopted. The special rule of order is now in effect. Bills on third reading.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 11, declaring work stoppage or strike by public employees to be unlawful. Third reading of the bill.
Question on passage of the bill. Senator from Jefferson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Sorry, 1 second. This proposed committee substitute sets forth legislative findings, which includes a declaration that any work stoppage or strike by public employees is unlawful. It sets forth when a County Board of Education employee is considered to be participating in a work stoppage. It prohibits accrued and equivalent instructional time and the delivery of instruction through alternative methods from being used to cancel days lost due to a concerted work stoppage or strike. It prohibits the state board from granting a waiver to a county board for its noncompliance with the 200-day minimum employment term or the 180-day minimum instructional term requirements if the noncompliance is the result of a concerted work stoppage. It provides that if an employee remains employed by the county board, notwithstanding his or her participation in a concerted work stoppage, the legislature determines to be grounds for termination of such participation, the county board is required to withhold the prorated salary or hourly pay for each day that the employee participates and requires the sums to be forfeited to the county board. Lastly, it prohibits a school closed due to a work stoppage or strike from participating in any extracurricular activities during any day the school is closed for that reason. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I urge adoption.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? Junior Senator from the 8th.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Will the senator from Jefferson yield?
The senator yields.
Yes, I do.
All right, thank you, Mr. President. I guess the first question I have is, why didn't this bill go through the Judiciary Committee?
That's a question that's not up to me. Sorry, I can't answer that.
Well, this bill originated in your committee, correct?
It did not originate in my committee. It was introduced and it was assigned to education.
I'm sorry.
No problem.
Do you think it should have gone through to the Judiciary Committee?
Well, like I said, that's not up to me, but in my opinion, I do not know why it would. This has to do with education mostly, and also it is something that we have discussed in previous years and has been, basically just states what is the legal opinion of the Supreme Court. It's not changing anything legally.
Well, it's codifying what the Supreme Court says, and what the Supreme Court says is unlawful, correct?
The Supreme Court says that work stoppages are unlawful for employees, public employees.
And despite the fact that it's codifying a Supreme Court opinion, I just want to make sure I understand, you do not believe it should have gone through Judiciary Committee?
Well, like I said before, that's not up to me, but in my personal opinion, I think it got assigned to the right committee.
Does this bill do anything to encourage our teachers to stay in West Virginia?
I can't really say that it has anything to do with that.
Does this bill have anything to do with having educators come to West Virginia?
No, it doesn't really do anything with that either.
What's the reason for this legislation then?
This legislation clarifies that work stoppages are unlawful in the state of West Virginia and sets out the steps for counties and also for all of us to know what are exactly the consequences if there is an illegal work stoppage in the future.
Do you believe that 2 years ago when the teachers received pay raises, do you think they deserve those pay raises?
Yes, I do, and I voted for it.
Do you think that that the temporary fix on PEIA was deserved as well?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure what you're asking.
As you recall, one of the reasons why teachers...
Junior Senator from the 8th, confine your questions to the bill that's before us.
Again, this bill seeks to codify what is already common law in West Virginia, correct?
Correct.
And this bill has come about 2 years after a teacher strike in West Virginia, correct?
And there was one 3 years ago also.
Okay, 3 years ago and 2 years ago. All right. And my question is, going back to one of the reasons why the teacher struck was because of their concern over the promises made to them over PEIA, correct?
This bill has nothing to do with why the teachers went on strike or why there was a work stoppage. All this does is clarifies that it is illegal in the state of West Virginia, and it gives the counties clear direction and us an understanding of what is the consequences if there's an illegal work stoppage.
Sure, but you would agree with me, though, that but for the teacher strike, they would not have received a pay raise or would not received promises given to them over PEIA. Correct?
Again, we're not debating what occurred 2 years ago, but I will tell you that I don't agree with that. I actually can testify, because I was here, that there was going to be pay raises no matter what, even before they decided to do the work stoppage, and there was already discussions on what we're going to do for PEIA.
Mr. President, could I speak to the bill?
Repeat your question.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent to speak to the bill.
Approved. Is there objection? Proceed.
Mr. President, I understand that what this legislation seeks to do is codify what's already in common law, but the timing of it is suspicious. We've already heard testimony, even though this comes out of the Education Committee, that this bill does nothing to encourage teachers to stay or bring teachers to West Virginia, which is very important because I think we can all agree that our focus should be in protecting our folks and bringing more professionals here to West Virginia. I think it's also suspicious given that, and despite, let me say it this way, I don't think there's I'm not aware of any legislation to have increased teachers' pay or have to come through on the promises of PEIA that would have come about but for the teacher strike of West Virginia 3 years ago and the one following 2 years ago. And so, given that there's no reason for this legislation because it is already common law, given that it does nothing to bring teachers in West Virginia or support teachers in West Virginia, and given that the only reason I believe, again, because I'm not aware of any legislation that this body passed that increased teacher pay raise before the strike, I think that this legislation is misdirected, it's unnecessary, and it's nothing more than retribution. And I ask this body to oppose this legislation or vote no. Thank you.
Is there further discussion? Senior Senator from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support of the bill. This bill is about the children in West Virginia. When work stops in the schools of West Virginia, our kids are not in the classroom. And Mr. President, that has been illegal for years. The Supreme Court ruled on that and said that we now have case law, they made case law, that says such work stoppages are illegal. So how did it proceed and we have no consequence for the past couple work stoppages that have happened? Because we have kids now, given this pandemic, and then with past teacher strikes, we have kids in senior years of high school who've yet to see a full year of school because of the work stoppages that preceded the pandemic. So these teachers that stopped their work, that didn't come to school, the reason that they were able to continue beyond any other state employee and still get paid, if any other state employee had done this, they wouldn't have been paid, is that superintendents decided that they would close school. And what that allowed is that every teacher who walked out in those classrooms and those kids that could not come to school to continue to get paid. I've had parent after parent after parent after parent reach out to me through this pandemic especially and say they're worried to death for their kids. I've had teachers reaching out. They're worried to death for their kids because they have not been able to get instruction on a consistent manner for 4 years. So what this bill does is it says, Mr. Superintendent, if there is an illegal work stoppage and you decide to close school so that those teachers who are not showing up to work go and still get paid, well, here's what happens, is that until they do come back and actually have classroom time, they're not going to get paid for that time they're not there. So, and how does that happen? Is the money doesn't come to your county. So this actually requires a superintendent to take pause and you automatically cave to organizations that cheer our teachers on to fail our children. That's what this bill does, and I am strongly supportive of this bill, Mr. President.
Is there further discussion? Senator from Marion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate that. I wondered when it would be the first time I took the floor of the Senate. I guess today's the day. Looking at this bill, Mr. President, and I was doing a little research on the teacher strike, and today's February 22nd. And on February 22nd, 2018, I think our teachers in Boone County took the first action and walked out for better pay and better benefits. Anniversary day of the first strike, we're passing a piece of anti-labor legislation, in my opinion, on that day. 3 years later, coincidence? I'll leave that up to the members of this body to determine that. But what this bill does, I think it takes away local control. And Mr. President, I've heard the majority in this House and the House across the hall speak many, many times that they want people to have more local control. People in those districts know what's best for the people they represent. But that's only a term of convenience, it seems like, because when something happens that we don't like, then local control seems to go out the window. If teachers walk out and this bill passes, they won't get any pay, even if they work on the far end of that. They'll get it at the end, but their pay days will be disrupted. Their normal day-to-day activities will be disrupted. And I don't think any teacher in this state enjoyed walking out of those classrooms. We put our trust in the teachers and the school service personnel of this state to take care of our children and to mold the minds of the future of West Virginia. The finance chair talked about the calls he received from parents. I received a lot of calls from parents too. They wanted the teachers to have what was coming to them. They thought it was long overdue, that they were disrespected and they were underpaid. And they supported that strike 110%. Because you know why? They trust those that drive their kids to school every day. They trust those that clean the restrooms in those schoolhouses, and they trust those that teach their children. And they don't want to run away or discourage good teachers from coming to West Virginia because we pay them crap. They're concerned about that. This bill does nothing to move West Virginia forward. It does nothing to further that profession. It's mean-spirited. And I think it's in retaliation for people standing up for what they believe in. When them teachers walked out, the first thing they did was make sure them children was fed every day, because they knew the only meal sometimes they got was in that schoolhouse. That's how much they care about the children that they teach. This was nothing other than getting something they deserved. You see, Mr. President, I come from the private sector. And I've been on strike many, many times. But one thing about it, I was able to go to the bargaining table as an equal with my employer and try to find common ground to resolve the dispute, get a fair day's pay and benefits, and get on with work. Sometimes the only option we have, Mr. President, is to withhold our labor. Because if you look at the history of West Virginia, workers weren't treated very well. And if they didn't stand up, we'd still be living in company houses. We'd still be going to company doctors. We'd still be listening to company preachers. But we stood up collectively, and we fought back. And that's what these teachers did. In the spirit of true West Virginia fight, they stood up for what they believed in. They don't have collective bargaining, Mr. President. They have collective begging. Collective begging. They live and die by the actions of the legislature. It's mean-spirited. I think it's wrong for West Virginia. It is the oldest trick in the book. It's called divide and conquer. When you divide those individuals, they start fighting amongst themselves. They're easy to defeat. They're easy to beat. And it's wrong for West Virginia. Vote against this bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
Is there further discussion? Does the lady from Jefferson, or the senator from Jefferson, wish to close? Please proceed.
I won't belabor this. I'm just going to read a section from the Senate Bill 11. Any work stoppage or strike by employees of a county board of education poses a serious disruption to the thorough and efficient system of free schools guaranteed to the children of West Virginia by Section 1, Article 12 of the Constitution of West Virginia. This bill simply clarifies Work stoppages are illegal. This bill simply clarifies that it was not the legislature's intent to facilitate illegal work stoppages. This actually frees up the county boards of education to know how to act in the future. This is not a retaliatory bill. This is about making certain that our kids, our most precious resource, continue to remain our priority. I urge adoption.
Question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. All those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, 21 yeas, 12 nays, 1 absent and not voting, more than a majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative. I declare the bill passed. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 12 relating to local health department accountability.
Are there amendments? Oh, excuse me.
Yes.
Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the bill lie over one day while retaining its place on the calendar.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 66, creating voluntary WVU rifle team checkoff program on hunting and fishing licenses. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senator from Upshur. Senator from Preston.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator from Upshur is absent today. We might remember this bill from last year when it passed the Senate unanimously. Committee substitute for Senate Bill 66 creates a mechanism by which the individuals may make a voluntary donation to the West Virginia University Rifle Team. Applicants may donate any amount to the WVU Rifle Team by checking the appropriate box on the electronic application for hunting or fishing license. The donations collected will be deposited into a new non-appropriated special account called the West Virginia University Rifle Team Program Fund. The fund may also accept interest or return on investments accruing to the account, the gifts, grants, bequests, transfer, appropriations, and other donations from any government entity or unit of any person, firm, foundation, or corporation, and any appropriation by the legislature for this purpose. Any balance at the end of the fiscal year will remain in the fund, and the expenditures are limited to the purposes set forth in this section. The Director of the Division of Natural Resources is required to transfer the money in the fund to the West Virginia University Rifle Team Endowment Fund at least annually. Prior to the transfer, the DNR is entitled to deduct up to 5% of donations as an administrative fee for processing costs, which is necessary for federal funding purposes. At the end of each fiscal year, the DNR must submit an annual report to the Joint Committee on Government Finance detailing categories of expenditures from the fund, all sources of revenue, and the closing balance for the year. Mr. President, I urge passage of committee substitute Senate Bill 66 and will yield to any questions.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. All those opposed, nay. Clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, 33 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent not voting. More than a majority of those present and voting voted in the affirmative. I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed Senate Bill 69, creating Choose Life special registration plate, supporting adoption. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senator from Wetzel.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill would allow our Division of Motor Vehicles to issue special license plates to support adoption that would include the words "Choose Life." The fees would be the same as for license plates supporting organ donation and many other special license plate fees. There's an application fee of $10, an annual fee of $15, in addition to all the other normal fees. I urge passage of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? Senator from Monongalia.
Gentleman from Wetzel yield, please.
Gentleman from Wetzel yield. Gentleman yields.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Okay, I want to make sure you could hear me. Chairman, let me ask you a quick question or a couple of questions. I know that, and maybe you're not aware of, the fact that within the Department of Highways right now, and it's been part of their policy for many years, that anyone in this room who desires to create a license plate, a vanity plate, whatever you want to call it, has the opportunity to do so without going through the legislative process. It's a matter of collecting $25 from 100 applicants. The Department of Highways will produce these license plates. My question to you, are we going to see more of these license plate bills come through here in the future, or are we going to try and direct these folks to the natural route, which is let's get this moving forward with collecting the money for 100 plates? Because in this particular situation, I don't believe you have a minimum. So the Department of Highways has to gear up for maybe just one license plate or two license plates, and I see your staffer behind you shaking her head no. So if you'll turn around and grab her information, we can have further conversation.
They will require at least 250 people sign a petition or apply for the license plate before they will issue them.
So it's just in this bill here?
It doesn't say in the bill, but in their rules.
In the statute, it doesn't require if you're not belonging to a group, it's 250. If you belong to a group, it's 100.
Okay, she just told me if it's a special group, you can do it with 100 people. Otherwise, it takes 250. There is no special group for this, so it would take 250 people apply before they would issue the plate.
You mentioned the word petition in your
Pardon?
earlier. You mentioned the word petition in your earlier comment.
Well, they have to apply for the license plate.
They have to apply for the license plate.
Yes, 250.
250 people.
In this case, 250, yes.
Before they'll begin printing, before they gear up or anything?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. President.
Is there further discussion? Senator from Marion. Senator from
Gentleman,
Wetzel yield.
Continue to yield. Mr. Chairman, I'm trying to understand this. Could they do this without this piece of legislation? Could this be petitioned and this license plate be printed without this piece of legislation?
I think so, because I think they have to be a non-profit. Let me check.
Just a minute, we're looking at it right now.
I'm sorry?
As best we can tell, Senator, If it's an organization, they can apply directly to the Department of Motor Vehicles. If it's not an organization, then it has to come through this legislature.
So the only way this plate could be produced, if I'm hearing you right, Mr. Chairman, is through this piece of legislation. It cannot be produced any other way.
It would have to come through this legislature, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. President.
Is there further discussion? If not, question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote. Senator from Monongalia.
Yield one more time. Mr. Chairman, what's the definition of an organization within that legislation?
It doesn't have the definition in the code as to what it would be, but I would assume it would have to be some type of organization that is active in whatever they do. In other words, the universities can apply for the Alumni Association and things like that.
So could an outside the state organization...
Pardon?
Could an outside the state organization come in here and make the same request?
If they have the requisite number of applicants.
If they have the right number of applicants, yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Does any senator wish to ask the senator from Wetzel any further questions? Is there discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. All those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, 31 yeas, 2 nays, and 1 absent. And not voting. More than a majority of those present and voting have voted in the affirmative. I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 280 relating to e-commerce modernization. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. The senior senator from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 280 adds language to Article 3A relating to electronic commerce that requires all political subdivisions of this state to offer an online presence that will allow for payments to be made electronically by March 1st, 2023. It allows the State Treasurer's Office to promulgate legislative rules to establish a system by which it may exempt certain political subdivisions from the requirement of accepting electronic payments primarily based on that political subdivision's revenue collections. It also allows the State Treasurer's Office to invoice in a commercially reasonable manner the cost associated with the acceptance of credit card and other payment methods on its system. This bill, as the short title reads, modernizes the current payment systems present in this state's towns and counties. It's simply another step to bring this state into the 21st century. Mr. President, I'm happy to answer questions. Otherwise, I urge passage of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, 33 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present and voting have voted in the affirmative. I declare the bill passed. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 293, clarifying that Economic Development Authority is not authorized to enter into banking contracts without State Treasurer approval. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senior Senator from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 293 clarifies that the Economic Development Authority is not authorized to enter into banking contracts without the approval of the State Treasurer, who is the Chief Financial Officer of the state. Mr. President, I'll entertain questions. Otherwise, I urge passage of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. All those opposed will vote nay. Clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, 33 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent not voting. More than a majority of those present and voting have voted in the affirmative. I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 295 relating generally to economic development loans and loan insurance issued by state.
Senior Senator from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent for leave to amend Senate Bill 295.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Does the clerk have an amendment?
Yes, sir. Senator Maynard moves to amend the bill on page 8, 9, 10, and 11 by striking out all of Section 11A and inserting in lieu thereof a new section.
I got it. Senior Senator from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent to explain the amendment in lieu of having it read.
Is there objection? Chair hears none.
Thank you, Mr. President. This amendment to Senate Bill 295 eliminates language in the bill that required the Board of Treasury Investments to retain the monies loaned to the Economic Development Authority under the Broadband Loan Insurance Program in the Consolidated Fund. Instead, the loans under the program will be issued in the manner they were when the program was initiated in 2017 and through 2020. The monies will be wired to the EDA for placement in a special revenue account as a fixed income investment. Although both the Board of Treasury Investments and EDA prefer the method provided in the bill as introduced, constitutional concerns relating to Article 10, Section 6 of the West Virginia Constitution, which prohibits pledging the credit of the state for the benefit of private interest. Council is returning to the traditional method of issuing the loans under the program. I'll entertain questions. Otherwise, I urge adoption of the amendment.
Is there discussion? If not, the question before is the adoption of the amendment offered by the senior senator from the 6th. All those in favor will say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the amendment adopted. Are there further amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
The bill will be re-engrossed, and the clerk will read the bill a third time.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 295 relating generally to economic development loans and loan insurance issued by state. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senior Senator from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 295 reestablishes the Broadband Loan Insurance Program. It authorizes the Board of Treasury Investments to loan up to $80 million to the Economic Development Authority for express purpose of insuring loans to eligible broadband providers made by third-party financial institutions. The program limits to $20 million the amount EDA may insure for a single broadband provider in a single year. The bill provides significant transparency and oversight of the program. First, the EDA is required by the bill to adopt appropriate accounting practices and internal controls, and the legislative auditor will audit those practices and controls and overall compliance with the program's requirements biannually. EDA must also post and maintain information about all loans insured through the program on its website and report quarterly and annually to the governor, the BTI, and the Joint Committee on Government and Finance. Finally, BTI also has the right to copy and inspect all records related to the program. I'll entertain questions. Otherwise, I urge passage of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? Senior Senator from the 5th.
Would the senior senator from the 6th yield?
Would the senator yield? The senator yields.
So as we start looking at these loans and things, this will also help us develop municipal broadband if we want to. This is just not going to incumbent providers, correct?
Correct.
So when we start looking at in the future and start looking where we want to invest in access open access and affordability, this will provide us that, not necessarily feed the monopolies that have been utilizing this state for many years.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Is there further discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, 33 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative. I declare the bill passed. The clerk has a title amendment.
Senator Maynard moved to amend the title of the bill.
Question is on the adoption of the title amendment. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the title amendment adopted. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill be made effective from passage and request unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective.
Senior Senator from the 17th moves that the bill be made effective from passage and requests unanimous consent that the roll call used on the passage of the bill be used to make it so effective. Is there objection? Chair hears none. On this question, 33 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent, and not voting. More than 2/3 of those elected to the Senate having voted in the affirmative. I declare the bill effective from passage. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House. Bills on second reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 1, providing for parity of payment for telehealth services between service in person and service provided through telehealth platform. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
Yes, sir. Senator Maroney moved to amend the bill on page 3, section 7B, line 35.
Senator from Marshall.
Thank you. Mr. President, I request unanimous consent to explain the amendments in lieu of having them read, and that all amendments be considered as one.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Senator from Marshall.
Thank you, Mr. President. The purpose of this amendment, within the bill, it establishes different types of payments for the telehealth, whether it be parity or negotiated rates, which we'll get into tomorrow when we discuss the bill. The purpose of this amendment is to establish the date in which, in the future, in which those payment terms would become applicable, and that date is July 1st, 2021. So the purpose of this amendment is to establish the date of July 1st, 2021 is when the payment terms in this bill would become applicable. Mr. President, I urge adoption of the amendment.
Is there discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is adoption of the amendment offered by the Senator from Marshall. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and I declare the amendment adopted. Are there further amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
The bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Senate Bill 61, expanding coyote control program through voluntary assessment on breeding cows. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
Yes, sir. Senator SYPOLT moved to amend the bill on page 1, section 6E, line 15.
Senator from Preston.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent to explain the amendment in lieu of having it read.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Senator from Preston.
Thank you, Mr. President. As the members of the body may remember, this is exactly like the bill we had last year, which passed unanimously. However, there was a drafting error that came up from downstairs, which was not caught during the committee process. This drafting error will not change the intent of the bill or the operation of it in any way. Simply put, the bill will allow those beef producers to be included in the coyote protection program, and by remitting $1 per head, and this just allows that $1 remitted for the cattle beef producing program to also be subject to the 10% reduction for handling fees by the assessor. I urge adoption of the amendment.
Is there discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is adoption of the amendment offered by the senator from Preston. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed will say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the amendment adopted. Are there further amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
The bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 244, making it unlawful for public utility to prohibit customers from hiring contractors to construct, install, or maintain connections to public utility. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
Yes, sir. Senator Martin moved to amend the bill by striking out everything after the enacting clause.
The senator from Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent to explain the amendment in lieu of having it read.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Senator from Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a strike and insert amendment, and it adds clarity to the bill. The bill requires that certain public water and sewer utilities allow physical connections to the utility if certain requirements are met. The amendment is meant to clarify the bill and address some of the concerns voiced by stakeholders. The amendment sets forth that the new provisions only apply to public service districts and municipalities that own and operate a water or sewer utility. It gives the Public Service Commission the authority to require that any actual connection to the utility be made by the public utility itself or in the presence of the public utility. It gives the Public Service Commission the authority to step in and authorize work if the public utility is unreasonable or discriminatory with regard to work related to connect to the utility. It gives the Public Service Commission authority to impose reasonable standards and practices that protect the public utilities' assets, such as requiring insurance or bonds. And it also clarifies that the inspection by the public utility or district municipality are done at the public utility's expense. I urge adoption of the amendment.
Is there discussion? Senator from Harrison.
Will the junior senator from the 12th
yield? Senator yield? Senator yields.
Senator, I was just curious. I didn't get to see this bill in committee. It allows customers and any contractor to connect to any utility, any water or sewer line. Is that the idea?
Yeah, a developer that would want to extend the sewer line to multiple customers or to one customer.
Is there any requirements? I mean, I'm a little concerned, water loss, sewage leakage. I mean, particularly water loss. That's a big problem in our counties, as you know. Is there any assurance that they've got the qualifications to do that?
Yeah, and that's what the amendment really clarifies, is that they would have to be bonded in insurance, but also they have to go into an agreement with the Public Service Commission. When they enter into that agreement, the Public Service Commission also has those requirements that you speak of. And so they'll make sure that they're a licensed contractor, that they're bonded, that they're insured.
Well, I thought customers could do it too. If Mike Romano, which would be dangerous, but if I wanted to connect to a water line, public water line, or a public sewer line,
okay.
Is there anything that has to, is there any assurance that I've got the qualifications and ability to do that?
This would allow the customer to hire a private contractor to perform that work. It wouldn't be them physically doing it unless they were qualified. Now, if they were qualified, they were a contractor, everything that was met, then yes, they would be allowed to do it.
Okay, so I just can't do it because there's a water line running in front of down my street. I just can't connect to it.
Unless you hire a private contractor that is qualified.
But I couldn't do it myself unless I was qualified.
Yeah, unless you're qualified, correct.
And the PSC makes that determination whether or not I'm qualified?
Well, and also there's a provision that we had added in committee that we did keep in here that says also, to addition to that there are requirements that the PSD and the municipality has, and they are allowed to require that contractor or that customer to go up to those standards. So yes.
I'm just curious. I'm not sure how that's different now. I mean, for example, I got some inquiries from different water utilities, and they were concerned that they would have to accept contractors that were unqualified. Do you know if there's any basis in that? I mean, Do they get to decide who or not they accept or not?
And we did have discussions with several of those utilities, and that's why we're making the amendment, to help clarify some of that and make them feel more comfortable.
Okay. Thank you, Senator. Appreciate it.
Is there further discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is adoption of the amendment offered by the senator from Lewis. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the amendment adopted. Are there further amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
The bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading. Bills on first reading. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that all bills on first reading be considered read and advanced to second reading.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Introduction of guest. Remarks by members. Senator from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today in Senate Finance, we're going to hear a presentation that would, regarding legislation that would elevate positions within the offices of economic development and tourism. And by the way, we miss you up there in Senate Finance, so please feel free to come back anytime. Chairman Tarr is doing a great job. But today we are going to hear this presentation, and I've gotten a preview of it, and I support it, so I'm not setting up here to speak against it. I think Chelsea Ruby is a tremendous ambassador for the state. She's done a great job, and this will give her an even higher platform. I think Mitch Carmichael is going to do a great job in that position. He's already reached out to me to see what he can do in the Northern Panhandle, so I'm looking forward to working with him. We all know that he's got a motor that never stops, so I'm looking forward to that. But, Mr. President, I think there's a cabinet position that deserves serious consideration that we're not talking about, at least not right now. And it's related to the substance abuse crisis that we face in this state. While we've all been distracted by COVID-19 over the past year or so, drug overdoses have gone up tremendously. The Journal of the American Medical Association just came out with a study that reflects the fact that emergency room visits by people with overdoses went up substantially during the pandemic. So while we were all distracted by this virus, the drug problem got even worse across the country and here in West Virginia. I know in my hometown of Wheeling, drug overdoses have spiked, and I'm sure they have in communities across the state. And so, you know, the reasons are obvious: stress from losing a job, people who are concerned about getting the virus, people who are bored because they're locked up in their homes during this pandemic. All of that fed into this problem and made it even worse. And so I think now more than ever, we need someone who is a full-time drug czar in this state. We need someone to be highly visible, someone like a Dr. Marsh, who is fully engaged, who's going across the state on a regular basis, identifying the needs of every county. We have some tremendous programs in this state. I've seen them firsthand. Recently had a call with friends from Berkeley County, and I've been there and I've seen what they do, and I was reminded of how great it is what they've done and the county council has done there and the investment that they've put into this problem. Cabell County also has done some tremendous things when it comes to the opioid epidemic and substance abuse generally. They've been able to push their numbers down when they're going up in other parts of the state. And so what we need, in my opinion, is a full-time cabinet-level drug czar who is going to take the ideas from your part of the state and the ideas from Huntington and that part of the state and make sure that the other 53 counties have the opportunity to benefit from those programs. And the only way we can do it is if we have someone who's full-time, out in front of this issue, doing it each and every day. That person should report to the governor weekly. That person should make reports to this legislature during interms. And that person should be here during the legislative session making recommendations about bills that we should pass to try and address this problem. Now let me bring this back to my initial comments about Chelsea Ruby and Mitch Carmichael and my support of those positions. This idea of a cabinet-level drug czar isn't just for the health of our citizens, it's also for the sake of our economy. Because when Mitch Carmichael is sitting down to close a deal on a plant that might want to come to Weirton, West Virginia, and the CEO says, do you have a handle on the drug problem? We know you've had one. It's well known across the country. Do you have a handle on it? He'll have someone right next to him, right by his side to say, yes, we do. This is the plan that we've implemented. This is what we're doing. And this is the success that we're having because of it. I don't have to tell you, Mr. President, that matters to employers. Employers want to know that they can have a drug-free workforce in our state. And we need to have the right leadership in place to make sure that CEOs are confident that we really do have our arms around this problem. So let's show the business world, let's show the rest of the country that we're serious about tackling this problem, and let's elevate someone to that position to make sure that we have the leadership in place to tackle that problem. I'm so optimistic about it that I think we could put a sunset provision on it. We don't need to create a new layer of government that will go on in perpetuity. I think if we put a 5-year sunset on it, we'll really make a big difference. I'll draft the bill if you'll support me on it, Mr. President. Thank you for listening to me, and please join us in Senate Finance again sometime.
Further remarks, Senator from Wood.
Thank you, Mr. President. Last week, America lost what many of us consider to be a national treasure. Rush Limbaugh, the #1 talk show host for 30 years, passed away of lung cancer. He was loved and listened to by tens of millions of people. I just wanted to show him respect, his family also, by asking for a moment of silence.
Thank you, Senator. Further remarks, Junior Senator from the 8th.
Yes, Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the comments from the senator from Ohio be printed into the appendix of the journal. Thank you.
Is there objection? So ordered. Further remarks, Junior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would just like to remind all senators that tomorrow we will be having our panoramic portrait done here in the Senate chamber for the new members. We do this every year, so transportation will be meeting at 10 o'clock. That'll be at 9:30, so please be here sharp and crisp, ready to have that picture taken in your seat tomorrow at 9:30. Thank you.
Further remarks, Senior Senator from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President. On the desks of all the senators in the chamber, there's a paper that has, it's a spreadsheet that has CARES funding allocations on the top right-hand side of it. And when we had presentation from the Board of Education and Finance, there were some things I thought that might be helpful to the senators here to see county by county so you can see your district, the CARES allocations that went to the county boards of education. Just want to point out a couple columns here. One, if you go over where it says proposed state basic aid for fiscal year 22 and the difference, and you'll see that because of the drop in student population, the school aid formula decreases the funding to those counties. But what I also want you to take into consideration there, just to use this, if you look across at the allocations from the CARES money that have broad application to be able to use it throughout the multiple steps within the school aid formula. And there were 3 distributions. The first one that you'll see there is the West Virginia competitive grant allocation. Some of the counties that applied for that, not all of those that were eligible to receive it, but you'll see that many of those counties that did receive the grant down from the State Board of Education. Then also that you'll see the ECEF allocation. That is the first CARES allocation that went to them. And then the ESSERF2 is the second allocation that went to them. And you can see the total awarded through the CARES money at the final column. And then I'm going to take you just to the very final end of this. You flip it over on the back to get the rest of your counties. And the total decrease in the state aid formula is $66,750,537. The CARES money that came in total across those counties to offset that is $400,995,618. So just wanted to make sure that you understood if counties had questions or if you had concerns about the difference between the state aid formula and actual money that came in. This spreadsheet answers those questions for you.
Is there further remarks? Senator from Boone.
Thank you, Mr. President. On your desk also are a couple papers on the Senate Bill 12 from Dr. Kathy Slimp and then Juliana Curry. There's obviously some public health concerns about Senate Bill 12, and since it has been laid over, I would encourage you to at least take a look at these editorials. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Further remarks? Miscellaneous business. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that a leave of absence be granted to the senator from Upshur.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Are there announcements? Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Subject to announcements, I move the Senate stand adjourned until tomorrow at 11 a.m.
Are there announcements? Senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on the Judiciary will meet this afternoon at 3 p.m. in the Judiciary Committee room in the West Wing.
Further announcements. Senior Senator from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Finance will meet today at 3 p.m. in room 451M. We'll have budget hearings with the Department of Transportation and the Department of Commerce, and we'll also take up bills today.
Further announcements. Senator from Preston.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Natural Resources will not meet today. I repeat, will not meet today.
Senator from Brooke.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on the Military will meet tomorrow at 10 a.m. in room 208 West.
Senator from Wood.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Banking and Insurance will not meet today. We will have an agenda next week, however. Thank you.
Further announcements. Senator from Wetzel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure will meet tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. and 4:51 a.m. We have 2 minor bills on the agenda and a presentation from the Commissioner of Highways.
Further announcements. If not, question, excuse me, didn't see it. Senator from Greenbrier.
Thank you, Mr. President. Democrats will caucus in 330 West at 12:45 today. Thank you.
Further announcements. If not, the question before the Senate stand adjourned until tomorrow at 11 a.m. All those in favor will say aye. All those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and I declare the Senate adjourned.